I do playlists, and there's fan bases that'll get upset that they're at the end of the alphabet, like Winnipeg. Vancouver well, why is he going alphabetically? So people get upset when they're last. This is a playlist I don't think any fan of the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to be upset that they're last on. They won the Stanley Cup. And I wanted to give it an extra day, so I didn't do the Tampa Bay video yesterday because I thought, no, let's not talk about how the Tampa Bay Lightning could get pillaged until they've had a chance to celebrate their Stanley Cup victory, and maybe once they've had a nice sleep. So I don't want to wake them up with my video. Have them let it just sleep it off. And now it's time to discuss how they may very well get rated next year. And by next year I mean the 9th. So Julian BriseBois is the GM, and he did a great job of getting this team to a Stanley Cup. Absolutely great job in finishing off what Steve Yzerman had started. John Cooper, great redemption arc for him. Really, Hollywood story. This was a team that they were the best, and then they got knocked out in the first round, proving that they weren't ready. This year, they didn't have a regular season on that same level, and yet in the postseason, they were easily the best team in the league. They weren't really challenged, were they? There wasn't really a series where you went, well, that's it for the Lightning. It really didn't happen. So when we look at the Lightning and what they did, it's impressive. And then the question becomes, can they do it again? And the answer I have is, I'm not really sure because of their salary cap issue. And salary cap issues happen to all teams. They do. They happen to all teams. Especially when you've won a Stanley Cup. Ask Chicago fans. Sometimes it has to do with not submitting your restricted free agent qualifying offers in time. But I digress. The point is, you're going to have trouble keeping your team together if you've won a Stanley Cup. That's just reality. So winning that Stanley Cup, their top six for next year could end up looking a little different. Although right now it projects to be Palat, Point, Kucherov, Killorn, Cirelli, and Stamkos. All looks well with those top six, and I couldn't think of anybody that realistically pushes anybody out if they're all healthy. Stamkos probably plays in the middle, but Cirelli's going to get his ice time, and so I thought, I'll leave it as it is. Now, top four defense. You know what? Honestly, there's a little more to this than necessarily meets the eye. So Hedman, Sergachev, Chernak, and McDonough. Now, we're going to leave the free agent question out of it. We're going to leave the restricted free agent status out of it. But just looking at the fact that three of those four top defensemen are left side playing defensemen, left-handed defensemen, that's a problem, right? So for Sergachev, he might be looking ahead of him on the depth chart and saying, well, Hedman and McDonough are both lefties. I'm a lefty. I'd like to get more ice time. I'm not going to get it. Now, it is becoming more popular in the NHL to have defensemen play on the other side. The problem with that is it causes defensive issues when you have a defenseman playing on the wrong side. And so that's something that I know there's a lot of teams that aren't necessarily worried as much about left-hand or right-hand defensemen as they would have been 10, 15 years ago, but it is still a consideration. And so for Sergachev, he's looking to get some money this year, and he may be looking to get some more ice time as well. Top two goaltenders, Vasilevsky and McElhinney, likely still the starting and backup goaltenders of note for next season. No reason to make any changes there. Yeah, McElhinney's getting older, but it's not like Vasilevsky needed a lot of nights off this year, and then he didn't need any nights off in what was an absolutely grueling, insane playoff. So, yeah, Vasilevsky's proven he's a warrior. He's able to play 26 games in about 50 days. And it looked like he could have played 26 more in the next 50. So, impressive run by Tampa was backstopped by one of the best young goaltenders in the game in Vasilevsky. Their cap space for next year is $5.33 million. That is a massive problem for Tampa. Absolutely huge. Their UFAs. Maroon, if he wants to stay, they might give him $1 million to stick around. They can't afford to give him much more than that. Shattenkirk, they will definitely miss Kevin Shattenkirk if they can't find a way to keep him. And he gave them a team-friendly deal this year. But even let's say he takes $2 million in the offseason. Let's just say he takes $2 million for another year. That takes them down to $3.33 million in cap space. It's just not enough. Jan Ruda, Luke Schenn, good stopgaps. Luke Schenn, if he wants to come back to Vancouver, I would absolutely accept him back. I'm pretty sure Quinn Hughes would as well. And if Tanev's going to free agency, Shen is not Tanev, but he'd be welcome back, I would think, in Vancouver locker room. He was good there. Restricted free agents. Cirelli. How much is Cirelli worth right now? Sergachev. Oh, how much is Sergachev worth going forward? Verhaeghe will sign for probably cheap. And Chernak. How much is Chernak worth? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Cirelli, Sergachev, and Chernak are worth combined more than $5.33 million. That becomes your major problem with Tampa, because that $5.33 million is including the fact you're losing 4 guys off your roster. They have a major cap crunch. And again, it's worth it if you win the Stanley Cup. It's not like there's a GM going, well, I didn't win the Stanley Cup, but look, I never have a cap problem. That's not a thing. So when a GM wins the Stanley Cup, you're going to have this headache. That's okay. Now, next year's UFAs are Coleman, Gaudreau, Paquette, and Coburn. So Coburn wasn't really prominent in any way during this run. I think he only played like 3 games. But Coleman, Gaudreau, and Paquette were very, very prominent. And the question becomes then, well, if they lose Cirelli, does Coleman then get called into a top 6 role? Do these guys end up having to do a little bit more if Anthony Cirelli ends up being gone? Because what could end up happening is, and I was listening to NHL radio, and they made a very good case for the idea that there's a GM out there somewhere that might be looking at Sergachev, licking his chops, and call Julien BriseBois and say, okay, here's the deal. I will give you these draft picks and this player right now, or I will offer sheet Sergachev and get back less. And you can't afford to match the offer sheet because you do not have the cap space. So it was a fascinating discussion that was going on, and I thought, wow, that could potentially happen. I mean, it's not likely, but right? I mean, we saw the Aho offer sheet last year. There's the possibility that Sergachev and just the tools that he has are just too tantalizing for a team to turn down. But this is where if they want to save money, they're going to have to move money out. They're going to have to move a lot of money out. Now, Yanni Gourde, $5.17 million until 2025. He has a no-trade clause. Tyler Johnson, $5 million till 2024. He has a no-trade clause. You can get guys to waive their no-trade clauses. But this is why when people say, I don't know how Tampa keeps that team together. Well, A, they get guys to take less money because they don't have to pay the same amount of taxes in Tampa that they might in another location. But they give out no-trade clauses. And I would argue that if Gourde and Johnson didn't have no-trade clauses, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. Tampa could just trade those guys and move along because they don't need them in the top 6. They're important players, but you can replace Yanni Gourde. You can replace Tyler Johnson. Johnson wasn't that prominent in the run to the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, Gourde was, but Gourde's trade value right now would be relatively decent. And then there's Alex Killorn, who has been mentioned in trade rumors for ages. He makes $4.45 million until 2023. He has a 16-team no-trade clause. So July 1st of every year, here's the 16 teams I'm not going to. And so that means they have 15 teams they can negotiate with for Killorn. And this is why Killorn's the one that's popular. But I'm going to say this right now. If you trade Killorn's $4.45 million and you've got about $9.7 million, that's not enough to sign Sergachev, Cirelli, and Chernak. Not the 3 of them. So the problem Tampa's going to have is, unless you find these guys are willing to take bridge contracts for below market value, well below market value, especially in Sergachev's case, you're still going to have a problem. Coburn, if you want to trade out Coburn and you say, all right, well, we don't even need him in the top 4, he has a no-trade clause as well, $1.7 million for 1 more year. So all of these guys have at least some version of a no-trade clause. 3 of them have a full no-trade clause. And this is the problem for the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, is that you have no cap space. If Sergachev leaves or Chernak leaves, I guess Cal Foote can jump into the top 4 defense. But he hasn't played yet, so I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see. Does Volkov get a shot at a top 6 role if Cirelli leaves? I don't know what Tampa's plan's going to be going forward. Again, they win the Stanley Cup. Absolutely worth it. They trade a first-round pick to get Gaudreau. They trade a first-round pick to get Coleman. and it all comes up and in their favor, and they win a Stanley Cup. So those draft picks are worth a lot less than what they might have been at the time of the trade deadline. And yet, well, they're not the one that they used to get Coleman isn't worth less because that was Vancouver's, but the one they gave up for San Jose is, because it's now the number 31 pick. But they're both worth it because you won. You won, and these guys were a major part of the reason why you won. Now at the draft, they're busy on day 2. Day 1, if you're a Tampa fan, you can just take the day out. You do not have to watch anything on October 6th. If you want to come in and watch the live stream, I encourage that, but you don't have to watch anything. They have the number 62 pick by virtue of winning the Stanley Cup. That's where you pick. And they have number 85 in the 3rd round, and they have number 93. 85 came from Philly. So for Tampa, they have 2 third-round picks. They have the last pick of the 2nd round. I guess you could make an argument they could package 85 and 93 together to move up in the 3rd round, but there's probably not going to be a lot of trade action with Tampa, although could I see a situation where one of these guys basically waives their no-trade clause in exchange for, being moved and a draft pick coming back to Tampa? I could see that. Because if you're Julien BriseBois, you're willing to take a hit on one of these guys and just get back a draft pick. Jim Benning, you sit down. You got it. You got it with JT Miller. You got it right. Don't you dare put a first on Johnson or Gord or Killorn. You sit down, put the phone down, Mr. Benning, and just stay out of this one, please. On behalf of Vancouver fans everywhere, just don't. You got it right last summer. Don't do it again. You're playing with fire. Don't do it again. Now, again, for Tampa Bay, the road forward is going to be a matter of making room for the money you need in order to sign these guys. And on top of that, you can't lose Maroon, Shattenkirk, Ruda, and Shent and not replace them with guys. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on BriseBois to move money out in order to bring players in. And I'm foreseeing a situation where, kind of like the Capitals, the year they won the Stanley Cup actually, where they went through such a cap crunch that they had a bunch of guys on their 4th line that were just at the bare minimum salary, and they had a hard time putting a team together. And going into the season, I thought, I don't know how this is going to work. And then they won the Stanley Cup. So it's not all doom and gloom with Tampa going forward. It's a matter of finding a way to stay under the cap, keep everybody together, and realize in a flat cap world, things are going to be difficult for general managers. But if you've won the cup, it feels a lot better. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video, and hey, congratulations again to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And now they get to try to repeat. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.